Basically, $40 billion to save free speech. But you talk about self-censoring and that some of the left-wing creators have started to come out. We had Guy Pearce, I think it was, late last week, came out and asked a very sensible question about if trans people can only play trans characters, because we had Priscilla, Queen of the Desert with him, very famous film. Well, then does that mean that they can't play straight characters? Like, are we actually going to say now that you can only play a murderer if you're actually physically a murderer? Or is it acting? Like, which is it? And he got shouted down. And I knew when I saw his tweet that within 24 hours, there'd be some kind of gushing apology of, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause offense. Is there any way that people can actually stand their ground against that sort of mob and just say, no, the question is valid? Or are they too frightened of studios basically cancelling them?
They're too frightened. It's the alphabet mafia in Hollywood is extremely powerful and intimidating. And what we need is actors to just stand behind what they say. Now, that's asking a lot of what I call an adult pretender. Most of them don't have a ton of principles, and they're just pretty shallow people who, like I said, pretend for a living. But there's some that stand for what they believe in. Gina Carano did that, and others are doing that too. Like Ricky Gervais would never apologize for anything.
Where would he start? I mean, how long is Ricky Gervais's list of apologies? No, well,
long list.
Clint Eastwood's another great one. I've started following his old films because he just doesn't care. He's a true trooper there as far as theatre and entertainment goes. But we say that Gen Z has an attention span problem, which I think is fair. But what about the creators? Look at what happened to Game of Thrones, one of the most loved and popular shows that had everything thrown at it. But not only did its creators, Dan and Dave, bail on it because they were bored and offered more lucrative deals, but the original writer of the series, George R. Martin, hasn't even finished the books. Surely audiences will lose faith in fiction and storytelling if people keep doing this.
Trust is important. It is very important. And I have given up on George. I love those books, but I just put it on Twitter today. It's been 4,286 days since he released his last A Song of Ice and Fire book. So that's well over 11 years. And they just announced another Game of Thrones spinoff today, which was hilarious. No, if you lose the trust of your audience, of your paying customer, then you're done. You're just done. And there's so much goodwill, even with George and fans just want to enjoy stuff. But there's a point where they just go enough and they walk away and they never come back and they won't say anything. They'll just go. They'll go do their own thing. That's coming, I think. There are places that are trying to turn it around. I mean, like Top Gun Maverick's like the best example of like, hey, I just want to make a movie that's enjoyable. And then Tom Cruise put that little message at the beginning, like, thanks for coming to the theater. Thanks for keeping our industry alive. And it's just that little simple act of gratitude and kindness that probably added $500 million to that film. And Hollywood still can't figure it out. Now that some studios are starting to like, hey, maybe we should thank people for coming to our movies. Yeah. Like, how hard can that be? It's not much, especially after, telling half your fans to go take off for 5 years. I don't know where we're going to go, Fro. So it feels like things are changing, but it might be too late.